I'm Lannan, he's Giles. This is Lannan and Giles Unscripted. Today we are going to talk a little bit about what's happening with the season. Duncan, how will you start things out?
We'll be talking about things like, trying not to stress yourself out. We'll be talking about things like, goats in certain areas or remarks that maybe somebody pretty famous has made that don't make sense to much of anybody.
Well, we're also going to talk about trends in the news business that concern me and I hope will concern you as well. And we have a few stories that did not make the mainstream media coming up on our podcast. So stay with us, please. Welcome to Unscripted, a podcast with no script by design. We're not following a plan, and that's exactly the point. This show is about whatever's on the minds of your hosts, Larry Lannan and Duncan Giles. We'll dig into what's happening in the world and, just as importantly, what isn't making headlines this week. So, with that, let's get started. The conversation could go anywhere because we go wherever the microphones take us. Here's Larry Lannan and Duncan Giles. Well, today is December 22nd. We're doing this on Monday, kind of an unusual situation for Duncan and myself. We normally record later in the week, but hey, it is the holiday season. Plus, Duncan was under the weather last week, so we decided to put this off and do this on a Monday during our holiday week. So, Duncan, welcome back.
Thanks. Yeah, it's much better for me voice wise and health wise today because I decided last week it would be a dandy idea for me to get an upper respiratory infection and ended up basically losing my voice for a couple of days, which my beautiful and awesome wife Kim really enjoyed, but for me not so much, and for a podcast not really.
Yeah, in fact, I talked to you like 3 days after you got that. You still were in no good shape to be talking on a podcast, but it sounds like you are fully recovered. That's always good news.
Yeah, I'm probably 90 to 95% now, so I'm good to go.
So now we're in the holiday season. Again, today's the 22nd of December. We're just a few days before Christmas, and New Year's holiday comes after that. I don't know about you, but often when you get into this time of year, people are hitting deadlines. They've got family outings. My family got together the day before we recorded this on a Sunday, and not everybody was there, but we had a lot of my family there. I have a fairly big family, as you know, and had a chance to get together. We don't get that opportunity very often. And people with smaller families, it's sometimes we're intimate, but you get a chance to get together. So sometimes the stress level gets high. Have you ever found that to be the case with your holidays?
Absolutely, the stress level can be high. I heard a phrase from Kim today that was unrelated, but it works well for the holidays. You woke up and chose chaos. And so that means, if you've got stuff that's so stressing you out, you've got to hit 4 different places in 2 days, and you're worried about a gift for Uncle Jim and about this and that. Um, you know, this is not supposed to be a stressful time of year. It ends up being that way, but it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be joyful, like I said, getting together with your family, your extended family, that sort of thing, and just having a good time, and celebrating the reason for the season, so to speak.
So I think the main thing is, I mean, I think you're right. Sometimes people do choose the stress level, and the the key is not to take on too much responsibility yourself. And if you are overwhelmed, what you need to do is tell your family or your friends or whomever, whatever circle of people you're dealing with. So, this is getting a little bit too much. I don't think I can do everything you're asking me to do. Most people do understand that, Duncan.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, one of the great phrases, again, that I've seen around, but Kim likes to use, no is a complete sentence. So, if you're not able to do it, well, why can't you come here? Why can't you do this? I've explained it to you. Well, explain it to me further. Well, no is a complete sentence. For my own mental, health, for my family's mental health, we just can't do all of this at one time type thing.
So I think the best thing to do is if you feel like the stress is getting the best of you, this is a time that's supposed to be joyous. I mean, a time that's supposed to be celebratory. So celebrate, enjoy it, enjoy the time with your family, enjoy the time of the season. Most people are taking a little time off, but I'll say one thing, Duncan, you might appreciate this. I worked in the radio broadcasting industry for many years. The very first year I was working at a radio station, and we didn't even have a live mic at the station. I was just changing tapes and records and that kind of thing, watching the transmitter, doing those things that people do to keep a radio station running. And I had to work Christmas morning. I was, one of the newer guys, and we tried to stagger it out so everybody got a little bit of time off, so we didn't work long shifts that day. But I'll never forget Christmas morning being there and getting one phone call after the other. People saying, "You are playing some beautiful Christmas music today. I appreciate the fact that you've given up your Christmas morning to do this for us." And man, that meant more than anybody could ever imagine.
Yeah, that is awesome. And when if you're going out to have a Christmas dinner somewhere or something of that nature, make sure to appreciate those folks who are giving up part of their holidays working, whatever it is, first responders, whoever it is, just be grateful that they're out there doing their jobs to make our Christmases a little bit better.
Yes, and there are plenty of people, as you well know, who do work on Christmas Day, New Year's Day. They work on all the holidays, and just let's appreciate them a little bit more. That's a great note to remember. Well, I hate to mess up the holiday season with actual news, but I've got some actual news today, and I think it's something we need to talk about because I come from the news business. I was a news reporter for years. I still do a local news blog where I live, just because I think it's important that there be local news outlets. But national and local news, I think, it needs credibility. If you're not credible, people aren't going to believe you. And credibility is the most important. You lose it easily, and it takes years to build up, and it's important that you keep that. One of the most credible news organizations, all the way back to World War II and before, CBS News. Now, people have to remember that when radio stations went on the air and radio networks became a thing, the wire services like Associated Press, United Press, International Press that were around in those days didn't even allow radio stations to subscribe to them.
Right.
So if you were a radio network, for instance, you had to put your own news organization together. And that's what CBS News did. And the reason I mention all that is because the man who I think really created the CBS News that we've come to know is a man named Edward R. Murrow. Edward R. Murrow put his life at risk to provide news. Before America was in World War II, he broadcast on the top of the BBC building while Britain was under heavy bombardment from Nazi Germany and described it. You could hear the bombs going off in the background, and he could have been hit at any moment. But he felt it was important that not only he report on it, but people here in America what he was seeing and hearing, describe what he sees, and listen to what's going on. When America joined World War II, and even before then, Edward R. Murrow would go on bombing raids with pilots from the British and American military. They would take these bombing raids over Germany. All those flights did not come back. But Edward R. Murrow, again, felt that he needed to understand what these service people were going through and took those. And boy, I tell you that CBS wasn't happy about that. They did not want him to do this. He said, "I'm doing it. I don't," he was in Europe. They couldn't tell him what to do. He just went ahead and did it. And he risked his life because he felt it was so important that people heard that story back in America as to what was going on in Europe during World War II. Walter Cronkite was a World War II United Press reporter before he went to work for CBS News and became a famous anchor. I say all this because CBS News did all that over all those years to build up tremendous credibility. They had terrific journalists working there. It took a lot of heat for tough stories that they were willing to do. Something happened the day before we record this on 60 Minutes, the longest running TV news program on television, Sunday nights. It's a profitable program. It's a very heavily watched program. It's a terrific. It was had a terrific audience. Well, something has happened on the 60 Minutes program that was aired the day before we record this. There was a story that was scheduled to run about Venezuelan men being deported by the administration to what CBS News described as a brutal prison in El Salvador. The segment was all set to go. It had passed the legal department. They had checked all the legalities of it, went through fact checking, went through all the editorial reviews. Everybody found this story is accurate, it's good, it can go. They gave the administration an opportunity to respond. They chose not to do so. So they weren't included because they chose not to be included. They have a new person in charge of CBS News, a lady by the name of Barry Wise. Now, Barry Wise is somebody who has been an opinion columnist, and that's a job, and it's something that I understand she did reasonably well, gave her point of view. That's her job as an opinion columnist. But she has no experience as a so-called journalist. She has no experience running a large news department. It was her decision to pull that story because she said it wasn't ready. Now, the journalist who put that together, the reporter Sharon Alfonsi. Sharon Alfonsi is a very, very experienced correspondent, and she said the following in a note to her colleagues that was obtained by the New York Times. Quote, "Our story was screened 5 times and cleared by both CBS attorneys and standards and practices. In her view, pulling it now after every rigorous internal check had been met is not an editorial decision. It is a political one." And I'll close the quote there. So I think CBS News is taking a very big risk here. I know they have business before the FCC, and that's a dangerous sort of thing, a delicate sort of thing when there are corporate mergers going on, and CBS is right in the middle of that. But Duncan, I don't know about you. It has no bearing on what your political views may be, how you feel about Venezuelans, or how you feel about the El Salvador prisons. This was a story that was fact-checked from one end to another. It was accurate, it was correct, and it was pulled. And the administration had every chance to respond. They chose not to, and she pulled it apparently based on what she has been saying, because there wasn't anybody for the administration on there. Like there wasn't an effort to do that, and the administration chose not to. But I do believe, Duncan, this does damage the credibility of CBS News, and that's a bad thing.
I think CBS News has been going downhill rapidly in a very short period of time due to things just like this. It was absolutely a political decision, not based on facts or anything of that nature. Because the administration chose not to comment, which is fine, and that's what they would say. We went out to the administration, they chose not to comment on this story. That's how it's been done for decades, not just at 60 Minutes, but for any news organization. And, in this political climate, to kowtow to something because they didn't get a chance to, or they didn't respond, is absolute blarney. I'll be nice and clean that up, because there's no excuse for it, and that's what we need is truthful news. We need factual news, not influenced by the politics, right or left. Doesn't matter which one. And when you're running scared from something like the administration, that bodes well for no one.
And that's on the national scene. And it does concern me that journalists are being told they can't run their story because there's a political angle to it. A story that's been checked by the lawyers and the editorial staff and by the fact checkers, and it is an accurate story that meets the legal standards. But I'm also concerned, Duncan, about something else that is related to the news business, and that's local news. Let me give you just a few facts to ponder. Since 2005, 3,500 newspapers have gone out of business. 3,500. That was 40% of the industry that was existing at that time is now gone, closed. In this year of 2025, we're not quite done with it yet, but as far as we know now, 136 newspapers have disappeared. They're gone. Also, this year, there are 213 counties in the United States of America with no local news source at all. They don't have a radio station, they don't have a newspaper, they don't have a TV station that's their local covering their news. They don't have anybody covering their local news. And so some people say, well, maybe television news can fill the gap, right? Television news, they cover local news, the local TV stations. Well, here's something going on there that is impacting where you and I live in Indianapolis and also in other markets as well. It's undergoing some very intense consolidation. Station groups are starting to scale to their digital giants that are starting to buy them up. There are three companies that own 40% of all the local news outlets: Nexstar, Sinclair, and Gray. All three of those together own 40% of all the TV stations in the United States that have news departments, and most of them do. So what they do is they consolidate. And when you consolidate, you you fire a lot of journalists. As an example, Channel 4 and Channel 59 in Indianapolis had been owned by separate companies. They were bought up by the same company. And what they have now is they have different anchor staffs. They have different anchors for Channel 4 and 59. They have the weather people that work on camera, and they have the sports people that work on camera, and the news anchors. But the news department, the people that generate the actual news content, it's the same. Channel 59 took that on and they added no staff. And I got that specifically from somebody who works at Channel 59 who told me that. So you've got two stations sharing one group. There is a proposal to start consolidating more. It's before the FCC now. It violates current FCC rules. The FCC changes their rules, which is before them now. We will probably have at least one news department in a TV news department in Indianapolis. That could end up being consolidated, meaning a whole lot of journalists are going to lose their job, producers, camera people, as well as the reporters themselves. So right now we've got 422 television stations receiving their news from another newsroom. So, and the other part of this, Duncan, is that TV viewership since the pandemic is down by 1/3. So what you're seeing is the newsrooms are getting less money because they have less. The TV stations are making less money. The audience is down. More people are going online to get their news. So I think what concerns me a lot, yes, CBS, what's happening at CBS News is important. We need good national news. But when you don't have local news coverage, I think that's maybe an even bigger problem. And I'm curious to get your take on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's an epidemic, as you mentioned, all over the country. Newspapers are going out of business because most people, especially as you get skew younger, don't get their news from print. They want their news online. And it's always been difficult for news organizations of any sort to try and monetize that with subscriptions. Some do it better than others. But yeah, when you get down to the local news level and you start consolidating, they're not able to investigate things that are happening on a local level that may not be on the up and up. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's right or left or center, any of the above. Investigative journalism keeps people honest. And that's what, we want to make sure that there's light shed on issues, not just nationally, but locally as well. And when you see the elimination of those types of positions, that's not good. Last couple of times I've been interviewed on local TV news, basically they send out a reporter who does his own camera work. They don't even have cameramen anymore. They have a camera and a tripod, set it up, and then work their interview that particular way. So there are already jobs being lost out there, and I fear it's going to get worse. And in our own local newspaper, the Indianapolis Star, who for decades prided themselves on doing the right thing. They may have been owned by a family that was right wing, but the Pulliam family wanted to do the right thing and make sure things were investigated. Well, now you're seeing more and more cuts on that staff, and they're just not able to do the investigative reporting that I think needs to be done.
Yeah, and I'll have to give the Star credit because I know some of those reporters and editors, and they work very hard with the assets they have, which are
Yep.
reduced. And they've done some investigative reports, but it's been hard. And pulling the resources to do that is not easy. But when it comes to local news, to me, it's the investigative reporting is one thing, but just doing the basic reporting, just people showing up at meetings, at government meetings. I've been told by many government official that a meeting goes one way when there's a reporter in the room and another way when there is no reporter in the room. So I just think that having those eyes and ears is very important. So what have you got for us today, Duncan?
Well, one of the things that's been going on here locally, and it's taken off the local area, a little bit south of where we live is an area called Center Grove. It's a suburb of Indianapolis. Um, and there apparently was a goat wandering around. And this goat thing just took off. To give you an idea, on a Facebook group, it was Center Grove chatter. Now it's Center Goat chatter. People were taking memes of the goat, dressing it up, putting it behind police cars. I mean, everybody was getting involved and just having a great deal of fun with this. There would be goat spottings and things of that nature. But it just shows a community that, even in times that can be tough, is having some lighthearted moments and taking something as simple as a goat sighting to just make, having a great time, putting it in different situations, photoshopping it into different things. Local businesses were photoshopping it in their dry cleaners or, what have you, matching pajamas. It just got to be just a really fun type of thing that gave everybody a smile that belonged to that group. And I think that's, in this day and age, that's not something to be discounted.
What I think is hilarious is the fact that, where I live in Fishers, which is north of Indianapolis, and then you got Center Grove, which is south of Indianapolis. There was a time when this was the country where seeing a goat was no big deal because there
Right.
were plenty of goats around. There were farms everywhere. Today, these are suburbs, and if you see a goat, it's like a news story.
Exactly. And that's what it was. Just a goat wandering around. Well, we've spotted him over. There were goat spottings, things of that nature. And it was just, you know,
Yeah.
this is the same group though that would go, how are the roads? And the roads would be, people would post memes going, well, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Or, I'm a little bit icy right now. I'm a little bit feeling cold, but I'm trying to get out of it.
Yes, I have to tell you that you get on social media and people say, "Gee, how are the roads?" And the responses are the smart aleck responses take over when that stuff happens. Let me tell you about some stories I found that I think people might enjoy. I have three of them for you this podcast. First one I want to talk about. Two of them are from Britain. I don't know what's going on in the British Isle, but there is a serial Guinness World Record breaker. The guy's name is David Rush. He's recently teamed up with his 9-year-old son to make a sandwich and break a record. That's right, his 9-year-old, he's already got some records under his belt. Now, this one, he had one food related record he got in the Guinness book. Well, now he's got his 9-year-old son, Peter, all ready to go and to take on the title of the fastest time to make a sandwich by a team of two blindfolded. That's right. Make a sandwich blindfolded. They made this ham, cheese, butter sandwich. I guess it's British to put butter on that sandwich and tomatoes as well. So when it took them 36 and a half seconds to do that, breaking the record of 40 seconds, which had been the previous record. which is pretty good. That's like 2 or 3 seconds. They've broken that record. But can you imagine making a sandwich blindfolded?
I'm thinking to myself, that's a really niche goal to have, to try and, okay, let's see what we can do. How to make a sandwich blindfolded, how we're going to practice, how many loaves of bread were used to, try and get that perfected so they could go for the record. Yeah, it's interesting that people want to go for these types of Guinness World Records, and it never surprises me how obscure that the Guinness folks can do it, because they're like, sure, another world record, great. Get our name out there, and Guinness beer is an advertisement. Sure, why not?
You're right. They have their own set of rules, and they have to abide by their rules. But if you're willing to abide by their rules and check it all out, that came from United Press International, that story. The next one comes from the BBC, and again, we're in Britain. A man who was attempting to break the Guinness World Record for continuous singing of Christmas songs. Man's name is Dave Purchase. Here we are with sandwiches again. He runs a toasted sandwich cafe in Gloucester. He's attempting to sing Christmas carols for 42 consecutive hours out on the docks of the city. He chose 38 different songs. To break the record, he's going to have to sing these 38 songs 18 times each. He started on December 10th, ended on December 12th. And I understand several choirs came in and joined with him at times. People dressed up during the period of time to kind of urge him on. And his quote was, "I really want to bring the world record to Gloucester and have a real community event here." So that was the story I found. Then I realized, did he actually break the record? This happened several days ago. So right before we recorded this, I got on the internet. He got it done. He actually got it done. He now has his name in the Guinness World Book of Records. He sang 684 songs. Those 38 songs, 18 times a piece. I guess there are rules. After a certain number of hours, he can take a short break. After a certain number of hours, he can take another short break. But other than that, he can take a restroom break every now and then. That's limited. 42 consecutive hours of singing. Now, there's a guy that probably lost his voice.
I was going to say, talk about shredding your vocal cords, even if you're doing it fairly quietly. And I was thinking, when you said he owned a sandwich shop, I'm like, I sure hope he's not doing it there, because his poor employees would probably be going, oh, dear God, not this song again. Was in a retail shop. Kim and I were in a retail shop late last week, and asking somebody about Christmas music in their shop. They started playing it around December 1st, really heavy, the same songs, and I'm like, is that enough to drive you crazy? And he goes, if I wasn't already crazy, yes, it would. So yeah, it's God bless him, and God bless him for wanting to bring a sense of community to his city. But yeah, that's got to shred his vocal cords.
If you really want to hear Christmas songs over and over again, try working for a radio station. I can experience
Yeah.
that. Yeah, if we're just playing the popular songs. If you got a good variety of it, it wasn't a problem. But sometimes we didn't have that great variety of some of the stations where I worked. Final story is from a source called The Smoking Gun. This is Florida. Why did so many of these stories originate in Florida? I do not know. But a Florida man is now under arrest for crashing a stolen BMW. And when the police got there and responded to it, uh, he said he had not stolen the car, but instead he was teleported into the driver's seat by aliens. He reportedly thanked the officers for saving him from the aliens, and the officers immediately charged him with grand theft. I don't know, Duncan, they just didn't buy that story.
Was one of the aliens named Jack and the other alien named Daniels? You've got to wonder about it. At least it's a creative type of explanation. It's not the usually, okay, I got busted, or it's my friend's car and no, I don't recall my friend's name. I was abducted by aliens. They transported me. Great. Do you have any proof? Well, no. Well, there you go.
Would you really want to be this guy's defense lawyer?
No. I mean, mental health you're going for a mental health defense there, but that's good luck to you on that.
Okay, Duncan, anything else before we go?
Yeah, I have a question for you. And this came up from something that was heard over the weekend. Need to know, does your wife steam her panties?
Oh, come on, Duncan. Why would you
No,
ask that?
now the reason I'm asking that, my wife, I do her laundry most of the time. She doesn't steam her panties. But according to the President of the United States, during a rally yesterday, he was talking about when they came into Mar-a-Lago with a search warrant, and his wife's undergarments were so nice that he thought that she steamed her panties clean.
You know, Duncan, I know you're not going to believe this, but I actually ran across that story and decided not to use it.
You know what? But me being the kind of guy I am, say, heck yes, I
Oh,
will use it.
all right. Well, you did. You one up me on that one. You got to it before I did. But
Kim and I just couldn't believe it last
yeah.
night when we're discussing it, going,
Hmm.
steam your undergarments, steam your panties. I think she steams her panties. What?
I must say that I do my own laundry. I do not do my wife's, so she wouldn't trust me to do hers anyway. So, oh yeah, there's a story. There's certain stories that come under the heading of you can't make this stuff up.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's like, I can't believe any adult would actually say that with a straight face and not be kidding. But no, apparently he was not kidding. He actually thought that.
Well, I want to make sure everybody enjoys their holiday season, however you choose to enjoy it. For the Christian faith, it's Christmas season, a very important one. Other faiths have Hanukkah. Some people have other ways to celebrate this time. Just celebrate, enjoy it, have a good time, and enjoy the time with family and friends. That's the most important part of this
Absolutely.
season. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And again, don't stress yourself out. Enjoy the season. Enjoy the reason for being at whatever religion that you might follow, or not even if you're Festivus.
For the rest of us, yeah.
Exactly, Festivus for the rest of us. Just enjoy the season and the reason for it.
Then Duncan and I will probably be back sometime next week, so we will come back at that point, see what's going on, maybe take a look at what's happened in the past year. Quite a bit has happened, and maybe we'll reflect a little bit on that. So, Duncan Giles, thanks again. This is Lannan and Giles, Unscripted. We have one ask for you as the audience. Like and subscribe to this podcast. We appreciate it. Duncan and Larry will be back soon with another episode. In the meantime, this is Unscripted.